Bon après-midi à vous tous. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie-France Lalonde, and I'm the Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of National Defence, but I'm also the very proud co-chair of the Canada-Romania Parliamentarian Friendship Group. Et c'est un plaisir d'être votre maître de cérémonie pour cette annonce et cet événement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We're also honored to be joined by the Honourable, my colleague Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, the Honourable Sebastian Burduja, Minister of Energy of Romania, the Honourable Todd Smith, Minister of Energy of Ontario, John Gorman, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Nuclear Association, and Aida Cipolla, Chief Financial Officer of the Ontario Power Generation. Thank you all for joining us today for this milestone event. I also would like to recognize et j'aimerais reconnaître la présence de plusieurs de mes collègues parlementaires de la Chambre des communes. Merci d'être aussi avec nous. Canada has a long history of leadership in the nuclear space. Across the country, but particularly here in Ontario, nuclear supply chains provide good jobs and affordable, non-emitting energy for Canadians. And in our fight against climate change, we need to use every tool in the toolbox, both at home and abroad, to lower emissions, expand our supply of electricity and power generation, and build up a cleaner, more prosperous future. Et sur ce, je suis très fière d'inviter quelqu'un qui va vous parler un peu plus de pourquoi vous êtes tous ici aujourd'hui, l'honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, ministre de l'Énergie et des Ressources naturelles, à vous dire quelques mots. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, hello, and welcome, everyone. Bună ziua. Most people didn't understand that, but some did. I certainly want to welcome my colleague, Minister Burduja here, and also to welcome the entire Romanian delegation. There are also a number of ambassadors and esteemed delegates here, and hopefully I've got all of them. But Ambassador Manoiu of Romania, Ambassador Kovalev from the Ukraine, Ambassador Oman of Sweden. I'm not sure if Ambassador Yamanuchi of Japan is still here, but he was here earlier. Deputy Ambassador Lewandowski of Poland and Councillor O'Toole of Finland. And I also do want to acknowledge the presence of my friend and colleague, Ontario's Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, who I called him and asked him to come, and he came very, very quickly. So I appreciate your presence here today. I also want to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues, and I have the names of all of those that said they were coming, so if I missed somebody, I apologize, but Brian May, Marie-France Lalonde, of course, Pam Dama, Francesco Sabara, Valerie Bradford, Senator Tony Lafreda, and Mario Simar from the Bloc Québécois, and my two amazing parliamentary secretaries, Julie de Bruzen and Marc Serret. We are gathered here to mark an important development that is relevant to European energy security, the global fight against climate change, and for Canadian jobs. Our friends from Romania have made a long journey, and I would certainly like to welcome them to Ottawa and to Canada. Nos deux pays entretiennent depuis longtemps des relations fondées sur des valeurs communes. Des milliers de Romains canadiens vivent dans ce pays et nos deux nations travaillent en étroite collaboration dans les domaines de la sécurité et de la coopération économique depuis des décennies. I recall that after Russia's illegal and unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine, I spoke with my colleagues, the energy ministers from across Europe, about the impacts of Russia's energy blackmail on European security and on energy prices. Russia's invasion of Ukraine exposed the volatility of global energy markets while disrupting supply chains for many other key commodities and industries. In this context, many European countries have been and are aggressively accelerating their transition towards secure, non-emitting forms of energy, including renewables, hydrogen, and nuclear energy. As part of these efforts, Europe asked for help from their friends, and Canada responded. In fact, we were the first country to ban imports of Russian oil and petroleum products. We then worked with industry to increase oil and gas exports in the short term by about 300,000 barrels per day equivalent by the end of 2022. We also worked to help our friends accelerate the move towards more secure sources of energy, including hydrogen and nuclear energy. Europe asked us to look at how Canada could potentially assist with clean fuels from Eastern Canada, which is why we have established active working groups with both Germany and the European Union. As part of our work in this regard, Canada took on the role as chair of the International Energy Agency's Task Force on Gas and Clean Fuels Market Monitoring and Supply Security. And we will continue to work to strongly support Ukraine and our European allies in enhancing energy security and, of course, combating climate change. Today, we are here to talk about nuclear energy. Around the world, businesses large and small, unions and government are in a race to reduce carbon emissions. That is to address the existential threat that is climate change, of course, but it is also to seize the enormous economic opportunities that are available to those who are thoughtful and those who are strategic in the context of the transition to a low-carbon future. Les données scientifiques sont claires, le changement climatique est l'une des principales causes de phénomènes météorologiques de plus en plus graves et fréquents. De même, la science est claire sur ce qu'il faut faire pour éviter les pires conséquences du changement climatique. En tant que communauté mondiale, nous devons atteindre la carboneutralité d'ici à 2050. Et nous devons faire des progrès importants d'ici 2030. Nous ne pourrons pas atteindre la carboneutralité d'ici 2050 si nous commençons notre travail en 2040. Ce dont nous avons également besoin à ce moment de notre histoire, c'est d'une stratégie économique réfléchie, collaborative et ambitieuse qui créera de la richesse et de bons emplois dans toutes les régions de ce pays, tout en garantissant que nous atteignons nos objectifs ambitieux et nécessaires en matière de climat. Dans cette course mondiale, l'énergie nucléaire est une technologie essentielle à la décarbonisation de nombreux pays et même de nombreuses régions du Canada. Le nucléaire fournit une électricité propre qui est essentielle pour les réseaux électriques de l'Ontario et du Nouveau-Brunswick. En Saskatchewan et en Ontario et au Nouveau-Brunswick, la chaîne d'approvisionnement nucléaire est une source importante d'activité économique. L'énergie nucléaire sera un contributeur important de l'avantage de notre pays en matière d'électricité propre. Canada began a legacy of nuclear excellence as the second country ever to produce nuclear power. Since that time, we have been actively involved in promoting the peaceful use of nuclear energy around the world. Today, as a Tier 1 nuclear nation with over 70 years of technological leadership, a world-class regulator, and a strong domestic supply chain, our nuclear sector is poised to be a leader in an emerging global market that some estimate to be worth up to $150 billion by 2040. Thanks to Saskatchewan, Canada is home to the largest deposit of high-grade uranium on Earth, and we produce over 70% of the world's supply of cobalt-60, the most common isotope used in radiation therapy and medical equipment sterilization. As a leading nation in the nuclear power space, Canada has a breadth of experience in this area and expertise. Many of the companies working to innovate the next generations of nuclear technology are actually in the room with us today. From medical isotopes to small modular reactors to responsible uranium development to CANDU technology, Canada is a nuclear leader, and this sector drives significant economic activity within the Canadian economy. Romania and Canada have a long-standing nuclear relationship. As many of you will know, the CANDU reactor is one of the most important technologies our country has brought to the world. CANDU reactors currently power a quarter of Romania's grid. While Russia uses its energy resources to blackmail countries across the world, Canadian technology is helping our allies to achieve energy independence and do so without contributing to climate change. Canada is very proud of our role in helping to build and to finance 2 CANDU reactors in Romania, Cernavoda 1 and 2 in 1996 and 2007 respectively. These units have operated safely for many years and have enabled Romania to avoid over 170 million tons of carbon dioxide. Today, with my Romanian counterpart, I am pleased to announce that we are building on this legacy to do even more together. The Government of Canada will be supporting Romania's clean power future by making available up to $3 billion in export financing for new Canadian CANDU reactors. Permettez-moi de répéter en français, le gouvernement du Canada soutiendra l'avenir de la Roumanie en matière d'énergie propre en mettant à disposition jusqu'à 3 milliards de dollars de financement à l'exportation pour de nouveaux réacteurs canadiens CANDU. This commitment is similar to Canada's original financing commitment to the original CANDU reactors in Romania. This financing will be provided to Romania's national operator of the nuclear generating stations. These new CANDU units will help Romania to reduce carbon emissions and enhance energy security, and not just for Romania, but also for Moldova and potentially for Ukraine. Canadians will also see economic benefits from this investment. The export financing will drive significant economic activity for workers and businesses in Canada very much, including here in Ontario. Many Canadian companies will benefit from this investment. In fact, 100% of the dollars being financed by the Canadian government will flow to Canadian companies. Much of this will go to small and medium-sized Canadian businesses. There are nearly 200 companies across Canada that currently supply products or services to the nuclear industry, including existing CANDU reactors, that will be well positioned to compete for supply contracts. This means jobs and economic opportunity, all while helping our Romanian partners combat climate change and enhance energy security in the face of Russian aggression. Ici au Canada, nous avons pris des mesures ambitieuses pour développer et déployer une gamme de technologies propres afin de saisir les opportunités économiques associées à la transition vers un avenir de carbone neutralité. The deployment of such technologies in the clean energy future for Canada will look different in different regions of the country. Minister Smith is with us today. Earlier this year, we met at Darlington to announce financing for Canada's first commercial small modular reactor. Just yesterday, I was in Alberta. I announced over $175 million in support of 12 wind and solar projects. And this morning, we brought Bill C-49 to second reading, a bill that will enable the development of an offshore wind and hydrogen sector in Atlantic Canada. Canada is working hard to fight climate change while creating good, sustainable jobs and strengthening regional economies. But we are also working internationally to make contributions beyond our borders. As I head to Europe next week for meetings with the International Energy Agency, I do so with the message that Canada is a committed partner for our allies in the fight against tyranny and in the equally important fight against climate change. So, Minister, I thank you for your partnership as our two nations advance down this path together, and I thank all of those here today for your work and dedication. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le ministre. J'aimerais maintenant inviter l'honorable Sebastian Burduja, ministre de l'Énergie de la Roumanie, à venir dire quelques mots.
Minister Wilkinson, Minister Smith, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, c'est vraiment un honneur exceptionnel pour moi de représenter la Roumanie devant vous aujourd'hui. Et c'est un jour historique pour moi, pour nous, pour la Roumanie, pour le Canada aussi, je crois. Et nous avons beaucoup de travail devant nous. If you go back in history, in the 1970s, Romania took a very surprising decision. It looked west, which was uncommon and dangerous back then. But it was a very good decision that today allows us to be secure. We look at our neighbors, they all depend on Russian nuclear technology, on Russian nuclear fuel. We look west to our Canadian friends who have provided our country with a great source of pride and a great source of energy. The CANDU reactors operating in Romania are some of the best in the world. Indeed, in a ranking of 440 nuclear reactors in the world, the second unit is number one, as I understand it, And that is thanks to you all and your amazing work. So I think this is first and foremost about energy security, and indeed not just for Romania, but really for the whole region. One of my first visits as minister was in Cernavoda. I wanted to see the miracle with my own eyes. And I was joined by the Moldovan Minister of Energy, and we signed an MOU that expresses Moldova's interest in purchasing power from the new reactors that will be built in Cernavoda. And Moldova, much like Ukraine, is not in an easy situation today. They're essentially with Russian troops on their territory since many years ago. And Putin has not hesitated to use energy as a weapon. I think that together Europe and North America have stood steadfast as we oppose that and as we diminished Putin's ability to use energy as a weapon. And please regard these very important projects, Units 3 and 4, as an additional step in that direction. Again, this is not just about Romania. It's about the security of the whole region, and ultimately it's about freedom. Energy as the fuel that really is fundamentally allowing a better future for all. And we are all, as a planet, in front of this trilemma that we all know. We need cheap energy so that we can encourage competitiveness and better living conditions. We want green energy, clean energy at least, so that we can all breathe a better air. And we want secure energy so we don't depend on various dictators around the world that are trying to influence our fate. I do think nuclear is the answer to that, and it does provide all those elements to the world. I think Canada has a huge opportunity, and I was very much happy when I saw that the nuclear industry itself is revived in Canada. I watched what has happened here in Ontario, and I congratulate you. And we work very closely as we think about refurbishing Unit 1 as well as Units 3 and 4. It's really an example for the world, at least for our region, but I think beyond. And I do think it's an opportunity for Canada, not just to support job creation, but really project technology, innovation, professional excellence around the world. When I was there, I asked one of the engineers that were very experienced, how was it all possible in Cernavoda? And he said, the Canadians. They did this. And I asked, well, how are we going to build 2 more? And he said, the Canadians. They can do this. And I know you can. I know it won't be easy. But as I flew over on a very long trip, I was reminded of a moment of great pride in our history, which is an Olympic moment. And her name is Nadia Comaneci. Perfect 10, right here in Canada. And I remember she once said that she never fears a challenge, that she doesn't run away from it, but runs towards it, because the only way to break fear is to trample it beneath your feet. I know that there will be many hard moments to come. I know this is just one step. It's a crucial step, and I'm very, very grateful on behalf of the entire government, on behalf of our president, on behalf of the Romanian people for you doing this. And I know that we will succeed. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Burduja. We will now hear from the Honourable Todd Smith, Minister of Energy for Ontario.
Thanks, Marie-France, my former colleague from the legislature in Ontario. Good to see you. Doing well here in the nation's capital. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see the Canadian Nuclear Association here under one roof. It's just like the CNA event that you have a couple months from now, it looks like, only there's no pens being handed out by those in attendance, not that we've seen, but it's great to be here. What a couple of great speeches to follow upon. I'd like to say that I'm too young to remember Nadia Comaneci, but I do remember that. Very well. It's great to be here with Minister Wilkinson. Thank you for the invitation. This is so important for Ontario's nuclear supply chain. And Minister Burduja, it's great to meet you and look forward to a long friendship here as we work together on this project. And my job here is to tell you how Ontario is going to benefit from today's announcement, and Canada as a whole is going to benefit. But first, though, Minister Burduja, let me welcome you to our nation's capital, which just happens to be in the province of Ontario. It's great to be joined, as I say, by so many representatives of Canada and Ontario's nuclear supply chain, as well as leaders from OPG and the Canadian Nuclear Association, who you're going to hear from. Also great to see my good friend, former colleague from the Organization of Canadian Nuclear Industries, Bill Walker, who served some time in the legislature as well. He paid his dues. And today's announcement really is a great one for Romania. It's a great one for Canada, and it's good news for Ontario. This export financing is going to see more clean, zero-emissions nuclear power produced. It's going to support new jobs here in Ontario as our supply chain steps up to support this deployment. It's another important step to support European energy security at a very, very critical time. And I know this firsthand. Late last year, I did have the opportunity to travel and meet with leaders from across Europe, as Minister Wilkinson did, to speak about energy security in the face of Russia's unprovoked and illegal invasion of Ukraine, and how Ontario and Canada could play a role in supporting their response. Minister Burduja, one of the most impactful of the meetings that I had was in Prague, and on the sidelines of the emergency meetings that were being held with EU ministers, and had the opportunity to speak with your predecessor, Minister Popescu, who was in the role just prior to you. And we discussed how countries across Europe were accelerating the build-out of new forms of energy supply to replace Russian natural gas, and the critical role that those two CANDU reactors at Cernavoda have played in Romania's grid. And as Minister Wilkinson has said, the CANDU reactor is one of the most important technologies that Canada has brought to the world. And I'm really pleased to see the opportunity to continue to build on that legacy, to build on that technology, and to help our allies with acquiring energy autonomy for themselves. As I said to Minister Popescu at that time in Prague, our supply chain is an amazing resource that can support the expansion of nuclear power, because thanks to their contributions to the continued successful refurbishment of our CANDU reactor units here at Darlington and Bruce in Ontario, Ontario companies are already geared up and they're ready to go. With every dollar that's invested by Canada going back to Canadian companies, I'm really excited to see our supply chain get to work, hire new engineers, hire new technicians, steel workers, and other trades to help get this job done in Romania. And as you embark on this hard work, you can be assured that Ontario and Canada are doing the same and advancing new nuclear opportunities as well. In Ontario, we're pleased to be advancing the first grid-scale small modular reactor in the Western world at our Darlington site. And we're not stopping there. Earlier this summer, I announced that Ontario was beginning pre-development work on an additional 4,800 megawatts of new nuclear generation at our Bruce site on Lake Huron, starting the process for large nuclear generation in Ontario once again. And one other exciting area of opportunity is medical isotopes, and Minister Wilkinson touched on that. This vital byproduct of nuclear energy has amazing positive benefits for everyone, from sterilizing the medical instruments to providing treatments that improve our quality of life and ensuring patients have access to critical life-saving treatments for cancer and other serious illnesses. And I'm pleased to say that Ontario is already a leader on this front with our CANDU reactors, providing most of the world's supply of cobalt-60, among other life-saving medical isotopes. With much of the competing supply in isotopes also coming from Russia, it is critically important that we continue to expand the supply for our trusted allies. And that's why I was so pleased to see Laurentis Energy Partners, a subsidiary of OPG, sign an MOU with Nuclear Electrica, the national operator of Cernavoda as well, to explore opportunities for collaboration on isotope production. It's a great announcement by Laurentis Energy Partners and Nuclear Electrica. I'm also really confident that all of the work that is ahead of us is going to continue to find new ways to collaborate and work together. We appreciate the vote of confidence in this Canadian technology, which has served both of our countries so well over many years in a safe fashion. And I look forward to our supply chain growing and supporting projects here at home and in Romania. Thanks to everyone for coming today. And back to you, Marie-France Lalonde.
Thank you very much, Minister Smith. Before I invite our other two guests, I just would like to note that there's a gentleman that we've been working very hard, and he's here every day, and he's been a strong advocate for this project. And I would say our ambassador, the ambassador of Romania in Canada, Ambassador Manuel, I want to say thank you because you worked very hard to secure this deal. So I have to say he was relentless. Relentless is the word I would use. So thank you. Merci beaucoup. I would like now to turn it over to John Gorman, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Nuclear Association. Merci.
Hello, everyone. Wow, it is wonderful to see so many of you here this afternoon. Quel grand plaisir de nous trouver si nombreux ici cet après-midi for such an exciting announcement. Look, in these times we find ourselves in as a world with so many pressing issues, and perhaps none more pressing than climate change and matters of energy security. We're finding as a world that we all need to do our part. And what strikes me about nuclear is that nuclear bridges borders. It's a global sector. It's a global community. It bridges politics. It's a technology that is truly non-partisan. And so when we consider what it is that we are going to do as nations, as regions, as leaders to do our part, I think that nuclear is turning out to be a shining example of how we work together across borders and across politics in order to tackle these important challenges. And indeed, this announcement today is a shining example of the type of collaboration that is required for us to tackle these immense challenges. The investment that is going to go into the continuation of this partnership between countries that we've had that have been so impactful in terms of addressing really relevant issues today. Despite Canada's involvement in nuclear being 6 decades old, our partnership with Romania being 5 decades old, as the minister from Romania said, it is now, in retrospect, perhaps one of the more important decisions that this partnership come together that could have been made. And it is going to be a shining example to the rest of the world in terms of how these collaborations are going to enable nuclear technology to cross borders and cross politics to make the sort of impact on these important issues that we need to do. Now, I'd like to speak for a moment about the Canadian side of this, and of course, my role here today is to speak a little bit about industry. I'm glad Minister Smith called out my counterpart, Bill Walker, over there from OCNI, who represents the nuclear supply chain here in Canada. But let's think about it for a moment. We've heard Minister Wilkinson talk about nuclear being perhaps one of the greatest technology innovations that this country has brought to the world. We are a small country. We are a small country that does a small number of things exceptionally well. And one of the things that we have proven ourselves to be doing exceptionally well is nuclear technology. It's the can-do technology, which we have brought to 6 other nations around the world, in addition to helping us here at home with our own security, environment, and economic needs. Nuclear is in the Canadian DNA. It is part of our DNA. Can-do is part of our DNA. We are going to be able to use this opportunity not only to show the rest of the world what a partnership can do around nuclear to solve these pressing issues that we have, but to use it as a launching platform to do more innovation and advancement here at home with Can-do to meet our own needs nationally. Minister Wilkinson has spoken to the increasing number of provinces that have come to the realization that we can use this Canadian DNA, we can use this technology to solve our issues here at home. In partnership with Romania, we are going to continue to build out our exceptional supply chain. We're going to continue to develop this technology so that we can meet our needs here at home, but so that we can take this technology and the partnerships, the allies that we have to help other nations address these important issues. The last thing I want to say, the very last thing I want to say, I promise you, is that this industry that we have here at home, Mr. Smith has spoken to the incredible strength of the Ontario industry, buoyed by this $26 billion refurbishment that is progressing on time and on budget. We have an amazing industry here which is innovating, which is firing on all cylinders, which will now be strengthened by this incredible announcement today. And we, as I said, will be able to bring this industry to deliver on national needs and to help nations worldwide deliver on their own climate goals, deliver on needs around energy security, and help with economic prosperity. So the industry is here. Thank you, and pleased to be part of this announcement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gorman. I would like to invite our final speaker, but not the least, Mrs. Aida Cipolla, Chief Financial Officer of the Ontario Power Generation.
Thank you, MP Lebon. It's an honor to be here today. And thank you to Minister Wilkinson, to Minister Burduja, Minister Smith, and John Gorman for being here as well. Today's announcement is another huge show of support for the Canadian nuclear industry, its future here and around the world. On behalf of Ontario Power Generation, we truly appreciate your continued confidence in our industry and Ontario's world-class nuclear supply chain. This just affirms that nuclear is the future. Whether it's Ontario, Canada, or Romania, we need more clean, reliable nuclear power to meet the various challenges facing us today, from energy security to climate change to electrification. Nuclear is the answer. For more than half a century now, Ontario has served as proven proof point on this. It was Ontario's power generation's predecessor company that helped deploy the first Can-do reactor. And today, that same technology provides the bulk of Ontario's non-emitting baseload generation to reliably, safely, and securely power our growing economy. We have exported this technology to great success around the world, including Pakistan, South Korea, China, and Romania. And we are now excited that Ontario's nuclear industry will once again be tasked with helping deploy new Can-do technology in Romania. Together with our plans to deploy small modular reactors in Canada, the US, and Europe, our partnership with Romania will bring many benefits to the nuclear power and to the world. To help decarbonize, electrify, and build sustainability, we are confident we can get the job done. Our robust nuclear supply chain has been extremely busy in recent years. Through the refurbishment of Ontario's nuclear reactors, including our Darlington refurbishment project, which is tracking on schedule, which is tracking on budget and ahead of schedule. and through the advancement of small modular reactors, which we plan to deploy at our Darlington site. Through all of this, we are building skills, experience, and know-how necessary to support more nuclear. Whether it be new nuclear reactors, future refurbishments, or the next generation of small modular reactors, Ontario's nuclear workforce is primed, set, and ready to deliver a sustainable, secured future for here at home and across the sea. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to now invite Minister Wilkinson and Burduja to take their seats at the table for the official signing ceremony and a little bit of pictures.
You can have the pen too if you want. It's a nice memory, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So this concludes the announcement portion. Ceci conclut la portion pour cet événement. We will now open it up for any questions from the media. We will start with media in the room, then move to those on the phone line. And the member of the media are asked to line up behind the floor microphone. We will go to one question and one follow-up each. Reporters are asked to identify themselves and their media outlet. I would like to invite Caroline. There you are. Perfect. Merci.
Thank you so much, MP. Yes, so as said, we will now start with the official media Q&A portion of the announcement. We'll start with journalists in the room and then move to those who may be waiting on the phone lines. We have time for one question and one follow-up per person. And before you start, as said, please state your name, your organization, and who your question is directed to. So is there anyone in the room who would like to start with a question?
Hi, gentlemen. David Reevely from The Logic. My question is, first question anyway, is directed at the Minister from Romania. What opportunities do you see for Canadian small modular reactors in your country?
Thank you for the question. It's a good one. We've gone a long way in exploring SMR technology with our strategic partner, the United States. So we have selected, based upon a process years ago, NuScale. It's a company that has been essentially validated with the regulatory procedures in the US. And so for now, we're focused on that first project, which hopefully will come online in 2029 at the latest. We're working on a calendar to accelerate that. But the country is a huge market, and I believe that the potential for SMR technology is absolutely huge. It is appropriate in the context of decentralizing energy systems, so you can locate it next to large industrial consumers, and Romania still has steel producers, aluminum producers, heavy industry, as well as in district heating. We have quite a few cities in Romania with centralized district heating, and there's a potential to use SMRs for that. So happy to explore that opportunity with Canada as well. And frankly, it's a great market to be in. So happy to have that conversation. Thank you.
I guess my follow-up then is, I mean, you went to Cernavoda and the engineers said the Canadians are the solution for the CANDU reactors. Why are the Canadians not the solution for SMRs? It's something that we think of ourselves as doing really well. What's the advantage the Americans had?
I think it was just a matter of timing when those initial conversations happened, and that's before my mandate. But certainly, given our successful cooperation in civil nuclear, generally speaking, I think SMRs are something to consider.
Yeah, I can just say just a couple things. I mean, as you will appreciate, the SMR area is an area of many emerging technologies, both here in Canada and many other parts of the world. Certainly, I think there's going to be space for a number of technologies of different sizes. The one that's being built at Darlington is quite a large one. It's 300 megawatts, but there are very small ones that are being developed by a range of other companies, including in New Brunswick. And certainly, we are interested in having conversations with our allies around the world, and certainly in Europe, about the role for Canadian technology. And I think Minister Smith could probably talk to you about some of the work that he has done in Europe. But certainly, I've had conversations with a number of countries, most particularly Poland, who is very interested in the work that we're doing.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room?
Hi, Davis Legree, iPolitics. I'm sorry to take us off topic, but I have a few questions about a different Smith, actually, from Mr. Wilkinson. There was an article in the Globe recently about comments that the two of you made about each other. And I know that whenever you're asked about her, you always say that you continue to work with Alberta and you're engaging on a variety of subjects. But I'm just wondering if you ever see a time or place when Canada and Alberta are aligned on energy policy and what that will take.
So I didn't say anything about Premier Smith other than to say that we've been working collaboratively together. So I would take a little bit of issue with the way you framed that question. What I would say is a couple things. There certainly are differences between us in terms of some areas, and that is exactly why we've stood up recently this Canada-Alberta working group, which is actually intended to try to find ways to narrow the differences, to try to find ways to ensure that we're working from the same data sets. At the end of the day, if you can actually agree on the data, you usually can get closer to agreeing on the answers. My speech at the World Petroleum Congress was about actually strengthening Canadian competitiveness. It was about acknowledging that we need to actually find ways to reduce emissions in the sector to a net zero future by 2050, which is something Premier Smith agrees with, as do all of the large energy companies in Alberta. But the other part of it is we also obviously have to reduce emissions in other sectors of the economy. Most countries that are not oil producers, 100% of their emissions are combustion-related emissions. In Canada, 75% of our emissions are combustion-related emissions. So it's not enough just to eliminate the emissions associated with the production of oil and gas. We also have to deploy electric vehicles and make our buildings more efficient, entire economy to net zero by 2050. And that's the message that I said to Alberta is the way to ensure that you are going to be competitive and you can grow share of what will be a smaller market is to actually get to net zero in terms of production emissions.
Perhaps this one will be a little more relevant, but environmentalists are, there are many in the environmental community who are opposed to nuclear power in general. They don't like dealing with the waste. They think they're too expensive and take too long to build. And I guess for both ministers, why are you so confident that nuclear is the silver bullet?
If you look at our experience, the units in Cernavoda that have been operating are among the top in the world. So they provide safe electricity, zero emissions, and very secure. They secured our future away from Russia. And again, that was a decision that was very wise 60 years ago. The EU went through this debate already. And obviously, Romania was on the side of France and others. And we advocated for considering nuclear energy zero emissions. And we won that battle. And we're happy about it because it's important. And so I really do believe that nuclear is it's a safe, secure, cheap, and clean form of energy. And you will see it in polls. Romanians are very pro-nuclear. And that's because for us it's a matter of national dignity, national pride. And that's why I also think Canada should be proud of what you've done in Romania and other parts of the world. And there's one last thing I'll say. Nuclear projects indeed take a long time. They exceed the mandate of a minister. They exceed the mandates of prime ministers. In Cernavoda, think about it, the discussion started in the 70s. The first unit came online in 1997. And I read reports from Canadians that were there, researchers, and they said, we never thought this would go through. We never thought this would be finished. But I do think that it takes leadership. And it takes thinking about the next generations, not about the next elections. Thank you.
I guess I would say kind of two things to that. The first is I have never said, nor do I think anybody in this room has ever said that nuclear is the silver bullet to solve climate issues. It is one of a range of technologies that are going to be required to get us to where we need to go, where science tells us we need to go in terms of reducing emissions, alongside electric vehicles and alongside heat pumps and alongside carbon capture and sequestration and alongside hydrogen and alongside a whole range of things. And there are places where nuclear power is more relevant than others. I come from British Columbia, which has this enormous hydro battery, where nuclear power is not as needed as it is in Ontario, or in New Brunswick, or in Saskatchewan, or in Alberta. And so there is a role. It is part of a broader suite of technologies. With respect to the environmental movement, I know I grew up in Saskatchewan, and this was a long debate in Saskatchewan many years ago about building a nuclear reactor, and there was great division. And there were many in the environmental community who were very concerned. And normally the concern focuses on the treatment of waste. And of course, we have to be good stewards of managing the issues around waste. But I would also tell you that many in the environmental community these days are increasingly saying climate change is the most urgent issue of our time. And in that context, we have to be able to move beyond the concerns that we have about waste, not forget them, we have to manage them thoughtfully, but we have to actually be addressing the climate issue. In Saskatchewan, there was a former NDP environment minister who had led the campaigns against nuclear energy for many, many years. And a few weeks ago, he told my father, a good friend of my father's, that he now actually is supportive of small modular reactors because he's so concerned about the climate issue. So I do think that while I understand there remain concerns on the part of some in the environmental movement, I think those are changing in the face of the urgency of climate change.
Thank you. Are there any other journalists in the room who would like to pose a question? Okay, great. Then I'll pass it over to our operators on the phone line.
Thank you, merci. For media on the phone, you may press star 1 if you have a question. Pour les médias au téléphone, vous pouvez appuyer sur étoile 1 si vous avez une question. We have a question from Matt McLaren from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I wanted to ask the Romanian Energy Minister, the Candu 6, I think it's fair to say, is a successful reactor, but it's also an older design. I guess it dates back to the 1970s. So why build a Candu 6 today? Why not build something more modern, say?
Thank you for that. Much of that answer is validated by the experience we've had with these reactors. As I said before, Unit 2 is the #1 best performing reactor in the world. And that, I guess, reflects the ability of the unit to run as much as possible and produce as much power as possible. Second, there's a long tradition of collaboration, and I'm proud that Ms. Elena Popescu is here. She's Director General for Energy Policy in the Ministry. She was there on the work site in Cernavoda many years ago, and she often shares stories. I want to give her a hand. She will often share stories of just how close that working relationship is between Romanian and Canadian experts. It's something that has been consolidated over generations. I know today, as we speak, there's a number of young Romanian researchers, experts at OPG, I believe, learning, upgrading their knowledge on this technology. So I think all the premises are there for a very, very successful partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And Minister Wilkinson, I just had a quick question about where this guarantee, this loan guarantee is coming from. Is this through the Canada account, or is this coming from EDC or some other source? Where is it coming from?
From Export Development Canada, EDC.
Yeah, directly. So yeah. It's not the Canada account isn't involved. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci. As a reminder, on the phone, you may press star 1. Comme rappel, vous pouvez appuyer sur étoile 1 au téléphone si vous avez une question. So there are no further questions on the phone.
And I apologize to the phone line. Écoutez, ceci conclut notre session pour les médias. J'aimerais vous remercier tous et chacun d'avoir été des nôtres, à nos deux ministres, nos trois ministres, et à vous tous de l'industrie, à mes collègues, merci. Thank you very much for joining us, and this is a good news for Canada and Romania.